Call to order the meeting of the Lake Mills City Council for March 1st, 2016. Please rise and join us for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, roll call, Misty, if you would.
Mr. Kirkovich?
Here.
Mr. Shar?
Here.
Mr. Knippel?
Here.
Mr. Foster?
Here.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Here.
Mr. Grundon?
Here.
Do I have a motion for corrections and or approval of the city council minutes of February 16th, 2016?
Make a motion to approve.
A motion. Do I have a
Second.
second? I have a second. Misty, if you would.
Mr. Shar?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Grundon?
Aye.
Mr. Kirkovich?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Item 4, correspondence. We'll start with Mrs. Fritsch.
Nothing of great significance. Quiet week for me.
Quiet week, the only thing I'll mention, I saw Steve Grabo's letter resigning.
yeah.
I wanted to just say thanks to him. He facilitated a lot of good meetings for the city, so good luck in his retirement.
Ed?
Just questions on agenda items, nothing other than that.
Okay. Mike?
No, very quiet.
Blaze, anything from high school? Nope. And I had nothing either, so very quiet week. Questions and public comment. This is item 5. Misty, would you read that paragraph?
Questions and public comment. The public is encouraged to address the council at this time regarding items on the agenda unless the item is the subject of a public hearing. If your comments pertain to a public hearing, you are asked to hold your comments until the hearing. Public comment may also be made at this time on items that are not on the agenda if you have registered with the city clerk before the meeting has been called to order. The state's open meeting law discourages action by the council on items not listed on the agenda. Please keep your comments limited to 3 minutes and state your name and address when starting your comments and fill out the sign-in sheet provided.
And before we go any further, item F on your agenda, council, we're going to be taking that off the agenda for tonight. And item 6, city managers report, Steve.
Are you going to ask for questions and public comment?
Oh, I'm sorry. Where's my manners? Just please come up to the podium, state your name, sign in, please. Name and address.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name's Anita J. Martin. I live at 261 Pinnacle Drive here in Lake Mills. The 9,000 goat farm and fertilizer plant is not going to be coming to Harvey and Mansfield roads as proposed. A couple of residents and I met with some people from the county on Friday, and we did learn that the intended operators will be looking at other spots in Jefferson County. At this point, we don't know where that will be. This would be, if it goes forward, the largest goat farm in the United States as far as we're aware, and most probably the largest farm and fertilizer plant of its type in the entire world. When we look at this, there are a couple of unique concerns with a facility such as this. And one of the biggest areas of concern include infectious diseases, more specifically Q fever or goat flu, which goats carry and can infect humans. When goats become infected with Q fever, it goes into their urine, milk, and feces. Contaminated dust becomes airborne through winds, dry sweeping, straw and hay, which is, the straw is the proposed bedding for the facility, manure, high-pressure hosing, slaughtering animals, and dressing carcasses. In addition, during the birthing process, there's a lot of organisms released if a goat is infected with Q fever. Q fever is highly infectious. Different sources say different things, but as few as 5 or maybe as many as 10 microbes can cause infection. Q fever for most people is not real serious, but it can be. Complications can be heart disease, such as endocarditis, where the valves become infected, pregnancy complications, including stillborns, premature births and miscarriages, meningitis, hepatitis, and possibly the most recent information says that Q fever may be linked to lymphoma. Most people recover within a matter of 6 to 12 weeks, but 1 to 2% of people that get Q fever will die. The largest human outbreak of Q fever on record occurred in the Netherlands between 2007 and 2010. 4,000 people were sickened, and it was believed to have been spread through wind. One thing I did want to show, and I don't know if it will show up, but we looked at this because now, again, the facility is not going to the proposed location that was initially discussed at Harvey Road and Mansfield Roads. But when you look at what the impact may have been, it could have been quite great. We did kind of a mapping, and with the avian flu, they used a 10K 6.1 mile radius for their surveillance. And so if you look at that, which probably doesn't show, it goes into Milford, it goes to the edge of Johnson Creek, it goes into Jefferson, it covers all of Rock Lake. So that would impact all those areas. The Dutch used an 18K 11.2 mile radius, and that goes quite far. So we would like to just get people aware of what's going on. We will be having a community meeting on Thursday, March 17th, which is, of course, St. Patrick's Day. We can't guarantee green beer, but we will have green candy. It'll be here in the building at 6:30 p.m. until 8:30 p.m. We'll be giving an update on the goat farm. There may be more information as far as possible location at that time. We'll also be giving an update on the chicken fertilizer plant on Crossman Road. Unlimited Renewables, LLC. We do have a Facebook site, Citizens for a Better Environment, Lake Mills, and if people have questions, they can call 920-285-0707. Thank you.
Thank you, Anita.
Thanks.
Is that number on the homepage? On the city's homepage?
At least it was.
Unless the number's changed, it's still on there.
Anyone else wishing to address the council? Seeing none, we'll close questions and public comment and go to the city manager's report again.
Well, I had provided information on 2 topics on the agenda. One is, I wanted to mention, was the police training. The work that they went through and the congratulations they received from our insurance company. The other one was the final notice on the Hamlin closing. Those are the 2 primary items that we've been working on.
Did the state, did they give, offer training and retraining and whatever, so it's?
Yeah, they offered, they worked with Hamlin on the plant closing to relocate displaced workers and to provide training for people who needed additional training to find work. So it's been, it will be, I mean, a lot of people have left, but they had offered a pretty good package, so they were able to keep a lot of their people. But as they make their final cuts, there will be people out looking for work.
Yeah. Well, we hate to see them go. They've been a part of Lake Mills for a long, long time.
Steve, I'm under the impression that there are going to be people in that building administratively speaking. I know I just happened to be speaking to a person this morning. They were saying 2020. That may be a stretch, but there's no manufacturing as of, what, the end of this month or something like that, very quickly.
My understanding is the manufacturing will be totally shuttered by June. That there will be an administrative and a sales staff here for a while. how long that is. There's been no indication. They didn't give me any indication that they would shut it down, but where it would end up within the state of Wisconsin was dependent on building availability.
And they will be selling the building? Is that there?
They don't own the building.
Oh, okay.
That's owned by the Ferguson Trust,
Oh, okay.
so I don't know what'll happen with that.
Any other questions for Steve?
I do. Steve, are you able to let the listening public know about the activities in the, on Highway V, the now empty liquor store, house slash motel in the Culvers area? What-
Oversight?
The Culver site, what will be going on over the next few weeks? Because people are going to see the activity going on there. And when does demolition is projected to start? Do you know that? Or-
They dropped off their permit today for demolition raising. So I anticipate that, well, I know that the fire and police department are training in it in the next week. So I'm anticipating either a week or a week and a half, they'll start demolition. They're trying to coordinate their construction with our construction on Elm Street. So once the site is raised and all the grubbing is completed, they'll probably start looking at how they get their foundation in and what their access to the site. We'll work with our accesses and those types of things, and then they hope to have it up and running by the end of July.
Thank you. And I guess the key thing there, in the next week, if people see police and fire trucks out in front and stuff, not to be alarmed, it's training.
Yeah, especially if there's smoke coming out of the building.
Yeah, that's only the smoke
Be
bomb.
real smoke.
No, it won't be real smoke, but they'll probably pop a couple smoke grenades and blow it through there for training. So.
Yeah. And that was kind of what I wanted you to address, because people could get a little worked up seeing that.
Okay, thank you, Ed. Have before me the minutes of the library board for November 16, 2015, and the library board minutes for January 18, 2016. They'll go on record as read. Item 8, council business, we have miscellaneous licenses. Why don't you take that one, Misty, and break it up the way you want to break it up?
Okay, we have an application for cigarette and tobacco products retail license for Lake Mills Foods LLC at 105 South Madison Street.
And that is Century.
That is Century.
Okay. So why don't we go ahead and take that one?
I make a motion to approve the application.
Second?
Any discussion? Misty, if you would.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Grundon?
Aye.
Mr. Kirkovich?
Aye.
Mr. Shar?
All right.
Motion passed 5-0.
And I see 1, 2, 3, 4 tavern operators license, if you would read those names.
We have tavern operators license for Tim Pulowski, Kevin Waddell, Colleen Christensen, and Santha Sweeney.
We have a motion of acceptance.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Misty, if you would, please.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Grundon?
Aye.
Mr. Kirkovich?
Aye.
Mr. Shar?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Okay, discussion decision on TID number 3, the remedial action plan implementation. I didn't say that right, did I? Implementation. Professional service contract for Ayers and Associate. Misty, if you would, read that motion.
City Council Motion 16-3-1-1, authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement for engineering services for implementation of the CPN Remedial Action Plan. Be it moved by the City Council of the City of Lake Mills, Wisconsin as follows. Section 1, that the professional engineering services agreement for implementation of the CPN Remedial Action Plan in the City of Lake Mills with Ayers Associates, copies of which are attached hereto and made a part hereof, are hereby approved. Section 2, that the city manager is authorized to execute said agreement in substantially the same form as attached and to take such actions as necessary to implement such agreement. The city council does hereby approve the professional engineering services agreement for implementation of the CPN Remedial Action Plan in the City of Lake Mills with Ayers Associates and authorizes the council president to sign the motion.
Do we have a motion of acceptance?
So moved.
And a second, please? Second.
Steve, I have one question.
Sure.
The monies for this is eventually going to be returned through the TID?
Yes, the
Okay.
TID pays about $50,000 a year, TID
Okay.
number 3. And so we should have this paid off in about 4 years.
Okay.
So that won't, I'm not concerned about the financing. The way this breaks out is there's about $54,000 worth of engineering, which is part of the agreement. And then they will put together the bids and specifications for the capping of the site. And then part of the engineering is they will do vapor testing in the buildings and groundwater testing for a year.
Okay.
So that money pays to asphalt a certain part of the area, to cover some of it with 1 foot of gravel or 2 feet of black dirt, depending on the site and the location.
And that's on that's the one on the same side as EMS and Ryan's,
Yes,
the brick building?
it's the big high building is the high bay, and then to the east of that, there's a metal building that's right up against the creek. Those two properties from basically the vacated Fargo, which is just east of Ryan's, all the way to the creek will be the property.
Okay. And so, why are we doing this?
It's a contaminated site, and so from a standpoint of the city, in order to protect public health from coming in contact with it, and to make the site economically viable again, it is in our best interest to clean the site up and get it moving forward as quick as possible, rather than going through a long decay process and having the DNR work through people that probably couldn't afford to do it anyways. This is our best option for getting that site fixed and cleaned up. And the TID originally conceived this concept, and it's paying for it, so
This is
it's
part of the brownstone,
brownfield.
brownfield rather?
Yep.
Brownfield.
Yeah, so it's all part of the long-term plan that was in TID 3.
So once this is completed, the land can be sold and buildings put on it, or?
Yes, it's available for redevelopment.
Okay.
It will come off the DNR site as a cleanup site.
Okay.
It will still be identified as having, been a brownfield, but it will no longer be under the cleanup requirements. If you went to build buildings on it, depending on what you decided to do would make a difference in what kind of if you would have to take any further action. So let's say you're digging out an area that's been capped.
Yeah.
You would have to remove that soil in an appropriate fashion. If you just paved over it, or you just turned it into green grass, you don't have to do anything.
Okay. Okay.
So, along those lines, I see this where it can benefit us as a community and as a city, to bring something else in there, to bring something else clean in there. But it also really benefits those owners, and I don't see them having any financial burden in this, but they're gonna reap all the benefits because they're gonna be able to sell their property. How can we say we're really balancing that and using this type of funds to, it's just a very difficult decision.
I would like to tag on to that, Mike. I'm sitting here and having gone through this a number of times and looking at this and knowing the individuals and caring for the individuals, but I'm looking at it and saying, how is it a balance? How is it a help? We've been over the fact that right now, nothing is leaking out. We've done the testing, and you've told us, over the years, Steve, that you and I have worked with it, that we've been out physically on the site a number of times together, that it's safe as it sits. Now, once you start to dig, or the first shovel goes in the ground, first backhoe comes in, then now it's a whole different issue. And I'm sitting here saying, fellow council members, I'm very leery of voting yes, because we're helping private entity right here and not the community in the immediate future. I would be here doing just the opposite. I would be championing that we should go forward with this if we had a company who was saying, we've committed to come to Lake Mills, take this site, but we need your city help. How are you going to help us? And where we're looking for the help is in the area of cleanup. And I would say then we need as a city to do absolutely everything we can do to get grants, to get money from the state, feds, wherever, to get this cleaned up for them and to go forward with it so that we can bring the business that's committed to it. But we have no one looking to come into it. It's this is almost a field of dreams. Well, if we do this, somebody will come. Well, no, I want somebody to come, and then we'll do everything we can to build them there.
It's kind of the same catch.
Let me throw a wrench in it, and I think,
Sure.
Steve, you had touched on that if, obviously, the owners are not in a position to take much action on their own.
Do they have to take action at this time?
Yes, they do.
Yeah, and so, if they don't take action, we're gonna end up with a properties that we don't really want to, because we pay for everything. And it won't come out of TID dollars. I don't think.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
I would like to make a comment on a couple of items. The one that was made is that you'd like a business to come. We're in the same position in the industrial park that we would be in here. If you have a business that comes and they want the site, we've already had one that came in and wanted the site, and because there's an environmental cleanup, it's too late. You need to clean it up, and then maybe they'll come. The other one is that the capping is occurring not because of digging. You have to do this in order to prevent physical contamination. So there are a couple sites that would be within that scope of either leaching into the creek or being physically capable of being a contamination. So you need to cap those in order to prevent physical touching of it. So it's not just digging in the sites, and it also has the capability of leaching right into the creek, which is another issue that we have. The money is available. The money is only available for this type of stuff. So I guess from my standpoint, the best use of this money is what it was set up to do, is to clean that site up. It's not a burden on the TID or anything else. In fact, it's a short-term payment in the TID, similar to the water mains that we put in on another property. They didn't particularly pay anything. We provided the water main through the TID. They benefited. They didn't pay anything else. I'm sure that these guys, that company benefited from having that available to them. And same through the whole industrial park. Those properties all benefit from having the streets, water, and sewer constructed and buying land for almost virtually nothing in comparison to what it really costs to develop it. So it's not a situation, and I can guarantee you these people are in need of assistance more than a lot of the other businesses that have benefited from TID dollars. So I don't see us being inconsistent, and we are doing something in the best interest economically of the community in order to be able to get these properties moving forward again as possible economic development sites and public health from the
If
standpoint.
we start leaching into that creek and start having to remediate that, and now we're talking tax dollars.
And
So-
even if we didn't get the property back, which is a potential,
Yeah,
but let's say we didn't, that property would only deteriorate over the years because there's no economic possibility, and we've had businesses come in without having it be ready to construct on there. They're not interested.
yeah.
So it's in our best interest to get it to the point
These
where.
are TID dollars. It's not coming off the tax roll. Per se.
Coming off the tax roll, but through a
Yeah.
TID, which is only
The TID.
set aside for these types of projects.
Right,
With reimbursement?
yeah.
I have a couple other questions. One was, why heirs on this, Steve? Why, it's not out for bids or anything for other people, we just take this is what it's going to cost you and run with it?
Ayers has carried it from the beginning,
Okay?
so they had all the history on the site and had all the programs in place and everything set up. So It's easier to use a company that did the phase 1, phase 2, the phase 3, the remedial action plan to actually finish it. Because they don't have to start over from scratch. That's why we did it that way.
My last question that I had was, in the project outcomes, it says to the greatest extent feasible. What guarantees are we have then in that? That's not like a blank check that's already been signed by the city. And that was in your, under, I don't know what page it was, but it was under project outcomes. So are we, we're setting aside an X amount of money, are we able to stay within that? You got
Yes.
the 185,000 you're saying.
That's not the issue of how much it's gonna cost, will stay within. The greatest extent feasible means that how the environmental cleanup happens and what exactly happens there in the future, we've done everything we could. There may be something that exceeds our capabilities and there's some kind of contamination that migrates to the creek or gets out, starts causing vapors in the building and those types of things. But to the greatest extent possible, we've done what we could to control those issues.
So will this work, if approved, will it displace anybody in there for any time?
No. The one is, it doesn't have a lot going on right now anyways.
Yeah.
Aggressive Metals is still up and running, but they wouldn't be displaced.
Diane?
Well, I think we have to do whatever we can do to clean up any sites we have in the city. And this happens to be one of them. We have others. After we get this done, we have to go after others. And I think my goal as a councilwoman is I'd like to see the city totally clean from all of it as soon as possible. Because you just never know where this stuff goes underground. They could get into some sort of traveling water thing, and then it's in somebody's backyard, and, I don't want that in Lake Mills.
No, all set. Steve?
I agree with Ed and Mike on, I'm not a fan of corporate welfare, but I don't see this as that. I see this as a good use of the dollars, clean it up, and, I'm kind of hoping it goes further. And, that's one of the biggest eyesores for me in this city, that hopefully will clean up further than that once we're done here, so.
And
I'm
again,
on-
back,
I'm on
Steve,
board. I just don't want anything in the rivers and, let's fix that.
so at this point, that site the work that we're talking about doing has to be done. Has the DNR ordered that, so it has to be done?
They've let us slide for a long time, so we've got the final order saying that this has to be done. It was kind of, when we did the last phase 3 environmental, they did the RAP right away, the remedial action plan. I think there was a communication gap between who was gonna do the remedial action plan, and I think the property owners thought we were gonna do it. We thought they were gonna at least take some action on it. And the DNR kind of just let it lay for about 3 years. And so finally, the DNR sent out a letter that said, you will complete this by this time.
So it's more of the property owners coming to us and saying, not saying, well, we're really nice if you do this for us. It's coming and saying, help. We need help in getting it done.
Yes, they definitely were willing to help. But within the scope of what we saw needed to be done, I don't think there was a lot they could do. It basically takes a contractor to come in and do certain items and just get it done and meet the intent of the DNR requirements. It's easier to control through that type of status.
Ladies, you got anything to add? No. Very well. Anybody else?
I think it's very similar to the sites we've had in the city where there were former gas stations. The person who owns that gas station was the owner. We didn't go back to them and say, whatever, and yet that had to be cleaned up, and it was expensive. But we now have, some of those areas remediated, and, it's to the benefit of everybody who lives in Lake Mills.
Great. Misty, if you would.
Mr. Grundon?
Aye.
Mr. Kirkovich?
Aye.
Mr. Shar?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Item C, this is a discussion decision on driveway policy waiver for Mr. Topol on 504 South Main Street. Misty, if you would.
City Council Motion 16-3-1-2, authorizing the waiving of city curb cut policy. Whereas the City Council of the City of Lake Mills, pursuant to authority conferred by statutes of the State of Wisconsin, has established certain standards and procedures for use of right-of-ways within the corporate limits of the City of Lake Mills. And whereas a petitioner described in the memo and letter has requested that the curb cut policy be waived. And whereas the city manager and city staff have reviewed the proposed request. And whereas the City Council has reviewed the information submitted and has considered the information regarding the subject. Be it therefore moved this first day of March 2016 by the City of Lake Mills Council that the City Council does hereby approve the waiver of the curb cut policy for Earl Topol at his property at 504 South Main Street and authorizes the council president to sign the motion.
And we have a motion of acceptance.
So moved.
I'll second.
Just a minute, Mr. Topol. Discussion?
Question, Steve, right now, if you looked at the whole property, there's 3 curb cuts, right? And this would reduce it to 2? But the applicant only wants the 2, so we're reducing it to the...
Could you repeat what you said? I couldn't hear.
There's currently 3, I was just verifying that there's 3 cuts on the property right now, currently, and when the construction's done, if we were to vote in favor of this, there would be 2 cuts instead of 3.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Topol? If they do, I'd look for a motion to relax the rules.
I don't have any.
There was already a motion and second, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
If not, call the vote.
Mr. Kirkovich?
Aye.
Mr. Shar?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Gundon?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
You'll have your cut, Mr. Topol.
Thank you for being here in case we had questions, which we didn't.
Okay, item D, discussion and decision on the bid award contract 1-2016 Elm Street extension. Been working on that a long time. Misty, would you read that, please?
City Council Motion 16-3-1-3, authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement for the Elm Street Extension, Contract 1-2016. Whereas the City Council of the City of Lake Mills has authority over the maintenance of rights-of-way within the City of Lake Mills. And whereas the City Council advertised, received bids for Elm Street Extension, Contract 1-2016. And whereas the City Council has reviewed the information submitted and has considered the information regarding the subject. Be it moved by the City Council of the City of Lake Mills, Wisconsin as follows. Section 1, that the low bid received from McGuire, Inc., W7022, Wisconsin, 11, Monroe, Wisconsin, 53566 for Elm Street Extension, Contract 1-2016, in the amount of $622,078.90 is hereby approved and accepted. Section 2, that the city manager and city clerk are authorized to execute all agreements and to take such actions as necessary to execute said bid. The City Council does hereby award Elm Street Extension, Contract 1-2016, in the amount of $622,078.90 to McGuire, Inc., W7022, Wisconsin 11, Monroe, Wisconsin 53566, and authorizes the council president to sign the motion.
Do we have a motion of acceptance?
So moved.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. And this company was recommended by, was it Strand?
Strand.
Strand's worked with them, and they're a good company.
They are actually in 2 parts. McGuire does the road construction, and then they have a preferred partner who does the underground, and Strand has done most of the work with the underground company. But they did do background information and check on them, and they have done other work that's been recommended by other people.
And what's the schedule for getting started on that?
The underground, we'd like to start in April as soon as possible. So if we have nice weather, maybe April 1st.
Okay.
That would be, like the water and the well, the sewer would be first, then the water, then the storm sewer. Then you go to your road base and then the pavement.
Does anybody have any questions or comments or
I
discussion?
do. Steve, I noticed that when we looked at the bids, and we take the lowest bid, required to, but I noticed that in that, there was, and I saw it elsewhere in some documents here, there was a 5% bond fee, and then the others giving a 10% bond fee. Do we not have a uniform requirement on bond fee? This doesn't have anything to do with the project, it has everything to do with the concept of the bond fees, is my question.
Well, we had historically done 10%. There was a question at the council meeting after we had a bond issue where the white guy bid 5 and was the low bidder and lost. And we reviewed why we had 10, and we decided to go to 5.
And 5 is,
So 5 is our
we're not
standard now.
jeopardizing the city taxpayers' money at 5? That's my concern.
No. It's not, it just, if they don't, the bid bond is, so they bid wrong and they decide to pull out, we keep 5% of the bid. So it's just a way to help us offset our cost of having to rebid. That cost, the 5% will be more than adequate on a project this size, so.
And bidders now know that? 5% is what's
It's in the
required?
bid documents.
I mean, it's available if they do their homework.
If they do their
We
homework.
shouldn't have to go out and do the homework for them, no. But if it's there available if they're doing their proper homework.
Yep.
All right, no further.
It's in all the bid documents.
Anyone else?
What's the target date completion?
July 31st.
End of July?
Yep.
Just in time for the grand opening of Culver's.
They're significantly tied together. I want to make sure this is all budgeted. It's tied to the Culver's project, which is adding increment to the TID. The TID debt is increasing because of the way we scheduled it. The actual growth in the TID hasn't kept up, and then the loss of the revenue from the dark store project has hurt us. So there may be a time period in here where some of this debt has to be paid out of the general fund revenues. And eventually the TID will probably pay it back, but I want you guys to know that that's a possibility, and you may see that in the next couple of years. Right, Betsy?
But the TID will pay us back.
Yes.
Okay. Because that was a little confusing. There might pay us back.
You heard that too, did you? I might.
All right. Anything else? Any other questions, comments?
It'll be nice, people won't have to drive through the cemetery anymore,
Yeah.
because
We're
the
gonna try and
cemetery
fix that,
really
too.
isn't meant for a freeway.
Right. There's some convenience to the west side over there, so I'm anticipating some people are gonna still try and drive through, but as you remember, part of the capital improvement project this year is to change the roads in the cemetery. So if you're looking for a quick through the cemetery like you have, that's not gonna happen.
No, but they wouldn't need it because they have this road now. I mean, I think.
What's, Steve, what's the safety at the Pine Street, Elm Street intersection?
On the south end?
We putting in a Steve roundabout, or what's
No,
the
it's a stop sign.
stop sign on
It's a
Elm?
It's a T intersection with a stop sign.
Okay. So it'll be a stop sign both ways, same
Yeah.
as, okay, thanks.
That's about a roundabout. You better speak French.
Don't start that rumor, we don't want that. I'll be getting phone calls right and left.
Yeah.
There's not enough room in
There's
that.
not enough room, I just had to
Not
give him a
enough room
bad
in that
time.
area to construct it,
Agreed.
and there's not enough traffic either. You'd want a roundabout that was in the,
Okay, Betsy, if you'd call the roll,
3,000 to
please.
4,000 at minimum.
Mr. Shar?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye, Betsy.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Grundon?
Aye.
Mr. Kirkovich?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Okay, final item, discussion and decision on bid award for the Lake Mills Dam Rehabilitation Project. Misty, if you would, please.
City Council Motion 16-3-1-4, authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement for the dam rehabilitation contract. Whereas the City Council of the City of Lake Mills has authority over the maintenance of the Mill Pond Dam within the City of Lake Mills, and whereas the City Council advertised, received bids for the dam rehabilitation contract, and whereas the City Council has reviewed the information submitted and has considered the information regarding the subject, be it moved by the City Council of the City of Lake Mills, Wisconsin as follows. Section 1, that the low bid received from Vilia Excavating LLC, W7755, Highway 106, Fort Atkinson, Wisconsin, 53538, for dam rehabilitation in the amount of $439,463 is hereby approved and accepted. Section 2, that the city manager and city clerk are authorized to execute all agreements and to take such actions as necessary to execute said bid. The city council does hereby award the dam rehabilitation contract in the amount of $439,463 to Vilia Excavating LLC, W7755, Highway 106, Fort Atkinson, Wisconsin, 53538, and authorizes the council president to sign the motion.
Your motion of acceptance.
So moved.
And a second?
I'll second.
Steve, I have one question for you. What was the last bid that we turned down?
Oh, it was 700 and some $1,000.
By waiting, we saved over $250,000. That's wonderful.
Yay.
Yeah, this one paid off.
Yeah.
Uh,
Bad.
You have to kind of go back through though, and for people who do bids on a regular basis, our level of panic is pretty high. Because when you drop from that much, and then you look at the separation between the low bid and the next three bids, it's pretty substantial. So you're kind of looking at it and saying, okay, what did he miss? So, you know, we're going through the bid documents and we're looking at, so I gave you a lot of information on this tonight, so. And remember, this is, there's still a portion of the bid that's still out there. There's still about $30,000 worth of SCADA work that has to be done on a separate contract. But, so we've gone through, we've reviewed the equipment, we've reviewed the finances, we've reviewed their work history. We've looked at some of the issues within their bid. We've come to the point where we feel comfortable enough that we're going to recommend this. We were originally looking at having a engineer out here maybe 2-3 times a week. We're probably going to, I have recommended, and we'll be bringing to you, we're going to have an engineer there every minute the contractor's on site. Just to make sure that, you know, the lack of,
Yeah, 'cause it's a dam.
yeah, I don't want anything to go wrong. You know, and from what I could tell, he's built one dam.
Okay.
And so you know, you've done all your work, you gotta start at some point. This is his second dam, he's got all his other stuff in order. Okay, we're gonna do it, but if he has any question, or I should say, if the engineer notices anything that's out of the ordinary, we'll know. So,
That's good.
Steve, there's a request here for the listening public. As we look at this, and should it pass tonight, what exactly will the public expect to see done? You know where I'm going with this question. It doesn't cover the big picture, all of it, but what exactly do we get for it? I mean, we know it, we have it here in our document, but if you could just give that out, I appreciate it.
well, we get new retaining walls, new concrete retaining walls, so the existing walls will be taken out, they'll be put in new ones. There'll be a new dam mechanism, there'll be a hydraulically controlled gate that opens and closes, a double butterfly gate, so instead of having a grate over it that collects all the weeds, it's a one that has the opportunity to work the debris through it. It will run into a channel that flows under the sidewalk that goes into the Legion on the south side, and then it will open up into a spillway that drops about 9 feet and then enters the manhole just on the west side of the sidewalk on the west side of South Main Street. The highway will not be closed like it was the last time. The last time when we had to pump water to open that area up, we didn't have any option for where we could put it, so we had to run it all the way across South Main Street and then behind the buildings by the old shoe factory. This time we just have to pump it from the cofferdam that'll be constructed to hold the water back from the dam, and then pump around and to that manhole that's right there in front of the Legion. So it should be a relatively easy project, other than the fact that those putting in the cofferdam and then getting those retaining walls and that gate to work right, and then constructing the SCADA equipment that operates and provides all the computer data that we need to have for the DNR.
I think
And
That includes the landscaping and all that?
That includes all the landscaping, everything.
well,
Now Rob is doing the plantings.
Okay.
what's the part that won't get done yet, that's on the separate bid?
The supervisory control and data acquisition equipment.
And is that on the part over at the mill pond? That area?
It's part of the dam.
The dam itself?
And it's a combination. It basically is a technology that's used to determine, what the temperature of the water is there, what the water height is. So, and it's controlled so that, we have to meet certain DNR requirements for how much water is allowed to be in there, and it'll know. And so it can, and then if there's some reason, it'll alert somebody to say, hey, there's a reason that the water is low or high. And then someone will know to come and look.
Will we be seeing that like on a soon on our agendas? The next part, that part?
SCADA, yes. Yeah.
So this also effectively separates the road from the dam again. So the road and that is no longer considered part of the dam.
That's correct. That's correct. But you have to remember, it moved us from a high hazard to a medium hazard, which was pretty irrelevant. The only way we were going to get to the low hazard was to remove the buildings on the east side of the. So from an insurance standpoint, it saved us a little bit of money, but not nearly as much as it would have if we'd gotten to the low.
Sure.
but it is a drop for
Drop.
the people.
Yeah, probably around $2,000 per year instead of the 12 to 15.
Yep.
New discussion? Well, we're finally getting this underway, so that's good. Misty?
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Grundon?
Aye.
Mr. Kirkovich?
Aye.
Mr. Shar?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Do we have recommendations for future agendas?
I have an item. As our council rep on the Main Street Board, it was brought to their attention that two things. One, Santa Claus needs a new coat of paint for next winter, which is one item. But connected with that, Main Street and also, Chamber of Commerce is also, both of them are interested in using the pole that Santa's on and making a display that goes on that pole that will highlight the activities in Lake Mills that we would like people from outside Lake Mills to come and attend. For instance, it'll have Town and Country Days on it, it'll have the Art Festival, and so forth. I'd like to put an item for discussion and decision on the next agenda for the city to do 1/3 of the cost with the Main Street and the Chamber. And I'll have a resolution on that agenda for us to discuss and talk about.
Does that need to go through the Parks Board? No, is that their, oh,
I don't think so.
okay,
But since the pole is already there,
Sure.
it's not like we're,
yeah. Now, is that gonna, are you talking about something that's permanent?
It'll be, when Santa comes down, it goes up. When
okay.
Santa, when that comes down, Santa goes up.
I see.
So it'll be kind of done in one fell swoop, you know, type of thing where we, two moves rather than, and hopefully it'll, you know, we'll have a listing of the, which evenings has the city band, things that we want people outside to attend and have it, at least that they know, well, let's go over there and see what it says on the sign. That's what our,
All right. Anything else?
There was, a couple weeks ago, or maybe 4 weeks ago, there was a letter from the Main Street asking the council to share in the cost of the chairs that were used at around the corner. Nobody ever took any action on bringing that before, for a council vote. I don't know if you guys are interested in
Guess
that.
I'm at a loss.
do we still need to contribute to that?
Yeah, they had asked the council if you would contribute, and I gave you the letter, and nobody made any suggestion on doing anything, so nothing has been done. I didn't know if you guys just
What do
didn't.
they need, chairs?
No,
They ordered extra chairs for
we were
the,
required to order extra chairs when we had the,
I see.
around the corner.
round the
They had to
corner,
rent them.
downstairs,
Yes.
yes, and they,
I see, okay.
And they wanted to split it 3 ways with the city and the chamber and us. And so they sent up a thing, I think it was for $116.83.
I'd like to also put that on the next agenda, too.
Okay.
Might as well put them together, not together, but one after the other.
Very good. Anything else? Blaze, you got anything from the high school? No. Okay. All right, hearing nothing, I'm going to call this meeting adjourned.
Thank you.